What up? It's Chris from Laser Lemming and UpandLoaded.com. Today, we're talking about the future of video game consoles because future's murky, folks. It's muddy, not so clear. But I have an idea of where it might be going, and I think I might be onto something here. So, the Switch launched. The Nintendo Switch launched. If you are paying attention, if you're not paying attention, it's a console that you could hook into a dock and you play it on your TV, or you could take it out of the dock and you could play it on the go. It's the next step for Nintendo. You know, they had their Game Boy line, they had their DS line. This is them consolidating their line. So now it's console and handheld, and it's all the same development teams working together on the same system. It means they can pump out games much faster and much more often than they could on the Wii U. So the 3DS got all the love for the new IPs. It got all the new fancy games. It got all the third-party support Nintendo was going to get for the most part. Wii U, not so much. This changes everything, at least for Nintendo. Now, the system is selling well. The Switch is selling very well. And Nintendo has, initially, they had predicted that they were going to sell about 8 million units in their first year. You know, from March 3rd this year to March 3rd next year, 8 million units. But it sold so well, Nintendo doubled their prediction. So now they are creating and planning to sell 16 million units in their first year. That's a lot. That's a lot. Very good for Nintendo. That is more than the Wii U made in 4 years and change. So Nintendo is onto something, and other companies believe Nintendo is onto something as well. So Nintendo predicted they're going to double it. Now Bloomberg is saying that they believe that the Switch will sell more than the Wii U. And the Wii. I meant to say the Wii. They believe that the Switch is going to sell more than the Wii. Not so hard to sell more than the Wii U. The Wii U sold like 10 to 13 million units total in its lifetime. The Switch is going to sell much better than that. At least Nintendo believes so. Bloomberg believes so. So they think it's going to sell better than the Wii. And to recap for you, the Wii sold, I want to say like 100 million units. 80 to 100 million units. A lot. The Wii was Nintendo's best-selling system. So to beat the Wii is a very bold prediction. I don't know that it's going to get that far, but I think it's definitely going to do all right. It's going to do not too shabby. And people say, you know, it's going to be a second system. So if you have a PlayStation 4, you're not as likely to get an Xbox One as you are to get a Switch. And vice versa. You got an Xbox One, maybe you want a Switch more than you want a PS4, because the crossover of third-party games is very prevalent on the PS4 and Xbox One. You don't necessarily need two systems unless you really want the first-party games on both. Otherwise, you're looking to Nintendo to satisfy that certain kind of game that Sony and Microsoft aren't offering. So, with that in mind, if, let's say half, I mean this is an extreme example, but let's say half of the PlayStation 4 owners and half of the Xbox One owners decide they want a second system, maybe they get a Switch. In which case, the Switch is outselling both of them. All pie in the sky dreams, but the Wii was kind of a second system for many gamers. Many people had an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3, but not both, and almost everybody had a Wii. So the idea is possibly that the Switch could be that system. Now, let's say it sells very well, which it probably will. Or we could at least say it'll sell decently. You never know. This is just the first month, but things are looking good for Nintendo. It's not just that the system is selling well, but people have very positive impressions about the system, and developers, more importantly, have very positive impressions about the system. So, with that in mind, let's look at a possible future here. Let's say Sony and Microsoft are planning their next system. Now, we know the PlayStation 4 Pro just came out at the end of last year, and the Xbox Scorpio, whatever they're going to call it, is coming out at the end of this year. Two bigger, beefier systems definitely meant to go into your TV. However, if the Switch sells extremely well, or very well, whatever, let's say extremely. Let's say the Switch sells extremely well. Well, the Wii sold extremely well. It ended up beating the competitors. However, it only came out a year after the Xbox 360. The Switch is coming out mid-gen. But let's say the Switch sells extremely well. What does that mean? When Sony and Microsoft are thinking of their next system, you know, the PlayStation 5s, the Xbox 4s, whatever they're going to call the next Xbox, when they're planning those next systems, do you think that they're going to look at the market and the direction it's going? Because they are. They are. So the idea of the Switch is something that was kind of inevitable. it's just kind of cool that Nintendo was the one to usher it in. The inevitable future, I think, at least today, right now, is that your smartphone is going to be a system, a console, essentially. Just take it with you, dock it, or maybe you don't even have to dock it. Maybe battery power will be so amazing that you only have to charge your phone once a year at that point. But you dock it and you play it, just like the Switch. So Apple's already gone in that direction a little bit. They have their Apple TV. It's not exactly the same thing, but the idea is similar. You're still using it on a shared infrastructure. You have App Store and you have Google Play, which you could play games on with your Amazon Fire Stick or your Fire Box or whatever. Ouya, whatever. I don't know if I still have you with me here, but what I'm saying is this is a direction, a trend that's been going on in the industry for a little bit, but Nintendo was really bringing this thing home. They really figured out how to do it right. Now, if the Switch sells very well, Microsoft and Sony are going to be second-guessing themselves. Even Phil Spencer said in an interview, he was asked about this, if that was the direction Microsoft would go, and he said, well, I can't, I'm paraphrasing here, but he essentially said that, I can't promise that, but we're always looking at trends, and it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Microsoft hasn't officially ever entered the gaming handheld space outside of smartphones, so this would be different for them. Sony, they tried it with the PSP and the Vita. They gave up very early on into the Vita's life cycle because smartphones were really booming at that time and the Vita was not. So they straight up just stopped caring. They stopped caring. The Vita is still a thing, I guess, but it's not something that people talk about on a mass level. People aren't talking about it like they are talking about a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, or in this case, a Nintendo Switch. So Sony has been kind of burned by this, but they know the bread and butter of Japan is handhelds. So while they focus more on the West with the PlayStation 4, that could change. Sony might want to get back into that game, and that could definitely affect the way consoles are designed. So with Nintendo, we already know. Nintendo has gone for something. They made the Switch. It doesn't have the same RAM or power as the PlayStation 4, and if it did, it would be extremely expensive, and the battery life would be awful. So Nintendo did what they had to do. The system, they reported, comes out, it costs about $257 for Nintendo to make. Now, when you add in shipping and just every other cost, like retailer cut, Nintendo was barely making any money on the Switches. So it's really just about getting the Switch into your home. So you have to throw out the idea that Sony and Microsoft are going to create a super powerful system that kicks Nintendo's ass and you could take it on the go. It's just not feasible. I mean, they could outperform Nintendo, but with the current technology standards, they can't do it with good battery life or a good price. So if this happens, if the Switch, let's say 2-3 years down the line, the Switch is outselling Sony, Microsoft, day by day by day, you better believe that they're going to take notice. And you better believe that there are going to be people in meetings discussing how their next system is going to be a tablet that you could take with you. Because it's happened before. Sony, when the Wii sold gangbusters, kicked their ass, what did they come out with? The PlayStation Move controllers, the motion controllers. It even had a little joystick nunchuck controller. Wireless, Sony evolved it like they often do, but they also straight up stole it like they often do. Microsoft, same story. What happened when the Wii sold gangbusters? Microsoft bought a company that made the Kinect. They had the Kinect development. I don't know if they bought the company, but they sure as hell licensed the product. And they made the Kinect camera. And then they were so invested in it. It actually sold very well. They were so invested in it that they forced you to get it with the Xbox One at launch. So Microsoft definitely took note of the Wii's success, just like Sony did. If the Switch is a huge success as well, there is no doubt that they're going to be having the same kind of discussions and talking about it. So, what this could mean is that the only purely graphical upgrade, leap, jump forward is through a gaming PC. Which, that'd be something. That'd be an interesting trend to happen. The consoles, it would all be handheld, docked. Handheld, docked. I think that's kind of the future. That's my personal look at it. But I want to know your thoughts. What do you think of that? Because that would really give Nintendo an edge, technically speaking, because Sony and Microsoft would not be able to just outperform them on a graphical level, on a hardware level. They would have to actually come up with different innovations that either they have to completely change the way hardware is designed to actually be able to get that kind of power and battery life at an affordable price, or they have to wait for the technology makers to sort that out. Your NVIDIAs, your AMDs, IBMs, HPs. You have to have those people who actually know how to do that. Take years and figure it out. I don't know if I'm making any sense to you right now. I just want to know your thoughts. What do you think of this? You might not like the Switch, but it really might influence your next system, or at least the companies that make your next system. Let me know your thoughts, comment section below. I've gone on very long, I can feel it, but I'm very interested in this topic. So subscribe for more if you haven't already. I got a comedy channel. You should check that out as well, Chris vs. the World. Very funny stuff. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.